The 100% Wild podcast is brought to you by OnX Hunt, the nation's #1 GPS hunting app. Download today in the Google Play and App Store.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast. The only podcast that's not practicing social distancing right now.
Yeah. We're supposed to get away from each other. Let's get into a 2-foot area.
We're all huddled in here. I'm Tim Chelsvik.
I'm Matt Drury. And I'm a special guest,
Chase Saylor.
We got Chase in. Chase is a friend that I met a couple years ago via Instagram, and he hunts Illinois, kind of what area? Southeast Illinois. And
we need coordinates.
Well, that's as close as I'm going to give you, because he's got some really special dirt that he's hunting, and he's got a pretty incredible story. So we wanted to have him in and kind of share that with us. We're doing a special DoD TV episode on it, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I want to chit chat a little bit.
Yeah, we should. So shed hunting is in effect right now.
Yeah.
I know you and the boys went up yesterday. I was not able to join you.
Yeah. You know, the lease isn't a area where we find many sheds to begin with. So I knew it would be,
wasting everyone's time.
We weren't going to find 15 or 20 from that, 383 acres. The majority of that is ag ground, maybe 100, 120 acres of timber. And I did have some high hopes. There's a couple 2 deer that I'm kind of eyeing for next season.
Yeah.
And we did find one side to one of those deer, a deer that we had called Too Short. And it's actually where 2S2 got his name from, that deer. So, it was interesting to see that, but he had actually gone downhill a little bit from the year before, because we have his sheds from the year before. So, we found 3-4 sheds. Most of them were older. Too Short was the only one that we found that was actually fresh.
Okay.
And we found a deadhead. So I was a little disappointed we didn't find a couple more, because heck, even looking at my camera inventory in the last few months, we put out the analogics, we had tons of deer hitting it. And, we had a bunch of 3 and 4 year old deer. We didn't find any of those. And I have a stud, a really nice 3-year-old that's going to be an absolute giant one day. And he was there all through January, February, early March, and we didn't find his shed. So it's one of those things. We had 6-7 guys. You could walked over it, very easily and not known it.
Isn't it weird when you find a shed that's a year or 2 or 3 years old? And you've walked past that spot multiple times. Yeah. It's been there the whole time.
So, more than anything, with everything going on, it was nice to get out. We literally, walked the entire property. You get to see travel corridors, areas that you just don't go into.
You learn a lot.
Man, there was some really good sign in there, sign kind of near where our stands are.
Okay.
That kind of confirms, all right, we were in the right spot. There was only a couple areas where I thought it'd be nice to hang here or here, but they're so deep into the property, there's no real good access. You'd screw more things up than you do more harm than good by putting stands there. So, it was good in that regard, just to get out and get to hang with the guys. It's as much about camaraderie as anything. It was nice to get to see everybody and shoot the breeze a little bit. And
you guys had a healthy, nutritious lunch too. I saw pictures of that.
Yeah, well,
donuts and summer sausage on the tailgate.
Deer sausage. So what more do you want?
Yeah, make sandwiches out of them.
That's right.
I've checked I've pulled some of my trail cams down. I just haven't gone through the pictures yet to see what's where the deer are at, and I just haven't been on the properties enough to see if they've all dropped by now.
Yeah, so I feel like for my area, it was like 85-90% dropped. There was a few younger deer; it still had half racks. Mark was saying he felt like he was 90%, but Chase actually was telling me a little bit earlier that it was almost completely opposite. Oh yeah, for you.
I mean, it's been crazy. I mean, usually always the beginning of March, like, all right, it's time to get out on your feet, get walking around. And I mean, I've been driving around about every night just to kind of find out where the deer are at, because kind of the hard thing for me is there's a whole lot of wide open fields, and it's like the deer just move around in those wide open fields. So you got to go where the deer are. But I mean, just last night I saw 7 bucks with still both sides, and some of them are pretty mature deer. And it's just like, I've been walking several miles and, I'm jumping deer with both sides, maybe one with one side. And it's like, what am I doing here? And I mean, I've found a couple deadheads that have been there a long time, and then just some little dinks, and and I've been checking my cameras too, kind of started pulling them, and like the deer have kind of moved out. And that's normal for my area. I necessarily don't get my good deer at this time of the year because they're right on the edge of the field and just going straight out to the field, and that's it.
Sure.
So you guys, your family has a pretty large farming operation, and so you're naturally the areas that you're hunting. It's a lot of open field.
Oh yeah, I mean
little patches of timber here and there.
It's easy for me to stand on top of this a hill. I mean it's mainly flat, but and look out 1,000 yards and be able to see deer. And I mean they're still carrying. I mean, which is good. I mean. But it's been mild.
They're healthy then.
They're healthy, and it's been a mild winter, so they're not, stressed.
Yeah.
And plenty of food.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good.
It's a good sign. Definitely. We should probably. Hey Scott, can you grab the antler to towers? This is a big reason why Chase is on with us. If you're watching the show, you're in for a treat.
If you're listening to it, you should watch this episode
in DeerCast, because we're going to show you something that people don't normally get to see.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got so many big deer. We had to say which one.
Which 200-inch class deer we talking about here? So this is Tower. Why don't you kind of walk us through your history with this guy?
Yeah. So this deer right here, I mean, I actually first pictures I got of this deer, it was 3 years ago, and he was a mainframe 8-pointer. And I mean, he was a mega giant 8, like one of those.
And you think how old was he at that point?
Man, at that point, I mean, obviously I didn't see him beforehand, and he was a mega 8 then. It's like couldn't have been like a 2-year-old then. So I'm saying 3.5 then, 4.5. Here he's 5.5, and give or take a year or two. But it's a big deer. It's not that big a deal. But,
right.
But
I'd say I think you're right. I mean, he's certainly not 4.5.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 5.5-year-old deer, but just the mass alone.
He had 41 inches of mass on him. And, as an 8-pointer 3 years ago, I got a velvet picture of him and a nighttime picture on the same farm that I killed him, but I mean, he just disappeared. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty crazy. Second gun season 3 years ago, we literally almost hit him in the pickup truck about 2.5 miles away going back to camp.
Wow.
And it was like, that about sums up. If I could see into the future, I'd be like, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And, so that year goes, I mean, I wasn't really hunting him. I got 2 trail cam pictures of him, not enough intel to really get serious about this deer. And then the next year it had been last year on September 26th.
That 2018?
Yeah, of 2018.
Okay.
So September 26th of November 18, I got my first, official picture of like actually hunting him. And he just blew up to a mainframe, perfect 12-pointer, 6x6. And I mean, I hunted him pretty hard, but there was another deer that I call Redemption that my main focus was on him. And then this deer was just kind of in the back of my mind.
He was a stud too.
Oh yeah. I mean, he was bigger than Redemption back then, but Redemption was like a deer like he was this year on just like, I was getting pictures of him all over the farm.
184?
181.
181.
And my neighbor killed him on November 5th. And so I was really focusing on him. And the first daylight picture I got of him was November 18th.
Of this deer?
Of
Redemption.
Of 2018.
Okay.
Of Towers.
Okay.
So the first daylight picture of him was November 18th at 10:59 in the morning, and I was walking into church. And I was like, and I checked that camera that afternoon because I hunted in that stand, and he was literally 20 yards away from there. And just, perfect shot.
That's kind of how the story of this deer goes, right?
I wish I would, I knew the number, but it was over 5 times where it was like, okay, I got between this stand and this stand. I'm going to go to this one. He was 20 yards from the other.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just back and forth. And so after Redemption got shot, so this is 2018 when he was a perfect 12. I didn't see him till the 25th of December with my eyes. And the season, I believe in 2018, went out January 20th. And from the December 25th to January 20th, I had 11 encounters with him. And it was like, I wasn't even checking my cameras at this point because I didn't need to. I would
Every night he would text or call me. He's like, well, saw him again.
It got kind of annoying, but also in the big picture of it, I was just blessed to be able to see a deer like that numerous times.
Yeah.
And the closest I got to him was 40 yards, but it was one of those, it was getting dark. He kept walking. It was in the wood. Just, I wasn't going to make a shot like that on a deer.
Sure.
And, so 11 encounters, but it all came down to the last day. And
the worst.
This may be the worst, best deer hunting story in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the last 2 weeks of season, I started hunting with a crossbow. And be honest, I'm not a huge fan of crossbows, but I was going to do anything legally to kill this deer.
Yeah.
So the problem was I was never able to get to my stand because he was so close to the field edge. And so I was hunting on the ground and I was getting in fence rows, popping up ghost blinds in the middle of fields. And I've had some close encounters with him. And so
did he ever bust you at any point in that?
Granted, I hunted the outsides of all my properties and, got in, got out. And there were sometimes I sat 45 minutes after dark because he was in the field.
Sure.
Or I had somebody drive by and clear him out.
Yeah.
And that doesn't scare him near as much as,
seeing someone materialize out of a tree or a blind or something.
Yeah. So get into the story. January 20th, last day of season. I'm walking to the stand. You actually sat in that stand overlooking the barn.
Yeah, Sean Lundy.
Yep. And I was going to go to that stand and I got there's a hole in the fence that I glassed the whole field and he's bedding underneath that stand. I'm like, when I say he's bedding underneath it, like he's rubbing his back on my sticks. And I'm like, well, I'm not going there. So I watched him 4 nights before, from another area. And he came down that fence row every single night with it.
What time was he coming out?
About 45 to 30 minutes before dark. Plenty of shooting light.
But you weren't there already?
I was there. So it was, let's say 5 o'clock-ish. It's getting dark. I was there at 1 o'clock and he was
that's
bedded.
what I thought. Yeah.
I was getting there super early. And
so he was bedded there by the stand.
Oh yeah. Bedded there by the stand super early. And he got up like clockwork, at 30 minutes till dark. But what I did in the meantime is all I could do, I knew where he was going to come down this fence row and I was going to come down the other fence row. I'm like, well, I'll get about 50 yards away. Give him some room. Granted, crossbow. If anybody shot any of these new crossbows, 50 yards, you feel comfortable.
Sure.
And I was in the prone position in this ditch. And, had it ranged and everything already.
And it's cold. That week it was freezing.
It was freezing and there was snow on the ground and there was snow in this bank. And he came down, it was like slow motion. Like it literally took probably 10 minutes to go 200 yards.
It's grueling.
I'm just watching the whole time. I got perfect sight. But my cover, he's not going to spook me. So I felt confident, like, man, this is it. And he just keep walking. And what do you know? When he comes right where I want, like, it's finally going to end. And I went to take my safety off and nothing. My safety is frozen shut from the snow getting packed in there from me crawling down the ditch. And it's like, I think to myself, like, I don't know how
if only you lifted more weights, you could have figured out how
I'm
he does seem like a weak man.
And you don't understand. Like, if you still want to get the crossbow, it's in the middle of the road. But and he just trotted off like he did every other night.
He never really noticed you were there?
I think I was getting
swearing in that ditch.
I think I was getting pretty aggressive with the crossbow at this point, but like even then he was just like, and just kind of trotted off. And then when he trotted off and I just got out of the ditch. And
I remember he texted me or called me and it was you still had light left. It was pretty early in the evening.
Oh yeah.
That last night.
Yeah. I was home before it was dark.
You're just done.
But he had gone to a different property.
Oh yeah. He was 400 yards away. He wasn't going to come back. There's no reason to, but he was just going to go feed in some corn like he did every other night. But so that was a hard pill to swallow because you're like, man, it's kind of like when you're playing football and you're on Friday night, you got to wait till the whole next week. Well, I got to wait all the way till October again to even get an opportunity at this deer again. And then
if he makes it,
and to top that off, I found a dead deer that shed, and he was mature and big. And I was like, yeah, good grief, this is terrible. So I walked my butt off for him. Like literally, he carried all the way up till February 28th. And then I didn't see him. And I was like, well, he may went somewhere or he shed, because there was, a good majority of shed bucks. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go hit it hard. My little app said I walked 101 miles over March in this area, did not find any sign of his antler.
wow.
And I honestly would have thought it would have been super easy as much as I would seen him after season. Because I would drive around every night and it'd be like, there he is, and just keep going. And that wasn't the case. So, that comes and goes. And, I'm starting to put my cameras back out in July. And late July, finally got his first velvet picture of him. I was like, good. It was like the best picture ever. And this is just, I'm kind of a numbers type guy, but the crazy thing is the camera that I got his first picture of the year before, I don't know why I put that camera in this other spot 1.5 miles away, was the first picture I got him of this year. So I don't know, same camera got his first picture each year. Kind of cool. And so end of July, I got this picture of him, and it was just a perfect velvet. I was like, good grief, he blew into a 5x5 with junk all over. I was like, that's pretty cool. And so, of course, I go hang a stand where he's at, and he starts coming by there for about a month. I'm like, man, I'm gonna kill him early season. He disappears. Yeah. And it was September 14th. I got his picture 1.5 miles to the northeast. And it's just a big, long ditch that runs through there. And it's known for, big bucks. I mean, if you're not hunting ditches, you're probably not hunting the right spot, because in
that area.
It's awesome. I mean, it's hard to get to sometimes, but if you want to see big deer, they're just hunkered down. And so September 14th, he disappeared again. The only pictures I got, but it was pretty neat. It was pictures of, he was laying in a soybean field, and he's got the soybeans wrapped all around his antlers.
Nice.
So you can tell he's just bedding there. And so October 15th, my luck kind of changed a little bit on how much info I was able to get on him. And it was almost like so much info that man, I'm a really bad hunter. Because it was
been there.
Yeah. I mean, so from October 15th to November 14th, when I got the opportunity to try to harvest him with my bow, I got pictures of him every day besides 4 on the same farm. And it was just like boom, boom, boom. It didn't matter where he was at on the farm. I mean, he would just change every day. It was sporadic.
No pattern
at all. I remember sending you points on the map, like on X, and be like, he's here. And like, I guess go sit over there.
Yeah, he was random.
Yeah, random.
Yeah.
I mean, nighttime, daytime, it didn't matter.
But that's kind of that area you're in. Yeah. I mean, there's so much ag ground. They just kind of move.
Yeah. I mean, and when the hard thing is, when you go like shed hunting right now, I think one of the main reasons I don't find any sheds, I'm always looking at sign and stuff, not looking at the ground enough. But I mean, when you go through my woods right now, there's not like a distinct trail. It's just
it's hard.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, they're coming out of a different spot every night. And so from October 15th to November 14th, November 14th was finally the day I was able to get a shot opportunity with him. But let's rewind just one day. On November 13th, I sat in the same exact spot, the fence row that you sat in. I sat in the same exact spot on the 13th, and I first laid my eyes on him. He was 550 yards away. I'm like, he's not going to get close to me. Well, he got within 100, and it was like 120 yards. Like, wow, that's a good hunt.
Yeah.
I wasn't even anticipating him coming that close. I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Though.
So he was running this doe. The 13th and 14th were his huge rut days. Like, he was everywhere. And so he was all over the place, and I got down out of my stand, and I'm not kidding you. He ran that doe. I was walking down the fence row on the north end. He ran the doe on the south side of the fence row, and he stopped 10 yards away from me. And there was a full moon, and I sunk down in on the ground real quick. I'm like, you're right there. And no idea I was there. All right. So, just more to add into the journal, but pretty awesome. And then the 14th, he came out of the exact same spot, 550 yards away. But this time I had a live decoy, a buck 20 yards away from me. And he didn't like him that he was there because there were some does behind me. And if I knew he was going to come, I would have stood up when he was 550 yards away.
Yeah.
And then once he started getting like, man, he may actually come over here. Of course, there's 3 mature does 20 yards away from me.
Nothing worse.
Right there. So I'm sitting down, bow in my left hand. He's coming from the right. And I'm like, he's going to come here. And then I knew when he finally made his initiative to go that way when he bristled up and he put his head down to that little buck. And he was coming in. He literally got 10 yards away from me. I could hear him breathing just right there. And I'm not that high in this tree just because it's like pretty gnarly. So getting high doesn't matter. So I'm literally probably 15 feet off the ground and he's 10 yards away. So you picture that. That's pretty dang close. And so my hands in my left, or bows in my left hand, finally, he kind of makes a semicircle to square up to this buck. And when he turned his butt to me, I stood up real quick, tried to get the camera on him. Of course, I hit the camera and got him out of view. And I pulled back bow and I was getting ready to settle in. What just happened? My bow went off. And, it was
just a bit outside.
Yeah, just my mistake. I mean,
it hit your neck gator, right?
Yeah, I had a thumb release and I was shooting super good with it. You know what? I'm going to hunt this year with this. Mm-hmm. And
that's my biggest fear of a thumb release.
You got to be careful.
And, it's an awesome true fire. And I mean, went back, settled in, and luckily I missed so bad. He wasn't like aware. He was just like, what the heck? What
literally like way over.
Oh, like I never found the arrow. I'm sure it was like 100 yards out or something.
Yeah.
Just a warning shot.
Yeah. Just, hey, I'm here.
As if this isn't hard enough. I'm going to give him a heads up.
Yeah,
this next one
for a great story.
This next one's for you, buddy.
Yeah, you got to give him a good shot here. So anyway, he kind of scampered off, kind of where he came from. But then he crossed the fence row, and now he's on my left-hand side. And he traveled. He was coming down the edge of these beans I left standing. He was right at 37 yards, and I pulled back. I mean, at this point, I was like calm and just ready to get this over with. Honestly, like there was no nerves. I was like, I feel good. And
that would not have been my mental state.
No, well,
this deer.
It was more though like, all right.
It would have been wet.
Filled.
Yeah, and filled.
Yeah. I was like, I already screwed up once. Let's not do it again. I did. But anyway, he got between a Y in the tree. So I had to stop him. I was like, my immediate instance, like, I should have aimed low because like he's aware. He got stopped, but I didn't do that. I just aimed where I should have aimed if he was just standing there calm. But it was like when I felt good about the shot, and then it was like slow mo.
How far was he?
37.
Okay.
And it was like slow mo, and he just dropped and ducked. And it was pretty crazy once I got my hands on him to see where the arrow went and how quick he was. He was standing straight broadside at me, and he almost turned to where he was facing right at me.
Like inside out.
Yeah. Like it was probably another 20 degrees of going straight down his spine, looking right at me. And the bows are pretty fast anymore. And for him to drop, 1.5 foot and turn to me before that arrow hits. And, but the thing is, I was trying to stay optimistic, and he had blood coming out both sides. I was like, well, maybe you got the artery, I don't know. But so I got down, got my arrow, not good sign. Still going to come back in the morning. I didn't even go look for blood. And me and my buddy Chris, and he brought his really good tracking dog. And I got to the gate at 9:30 in the morning. And what do you know? My neighbor, who it's outfitted around me, and he dropped a guy off at 9:30, and he walked right on my line. And I'm like, I sure hope I don't push this deer to him. But where I shot him was a long ways away. And so we went to where I initially shot him at, and we got on some blood. I was like, man, not a bad sign. I mean, there's quite a bit. I was shooting a Rage Extreme chisel tip. So, I mean, that's a big hole. I mean, So we tracked him for about 400 yards down to the river. I'm like, crap, he swam the river, good blood. I get a call from the outfitter. Hey, your deer's still alive. Get out of there. And
you're friends with the outfitter.
I'm friends. He's a super, I mean, I feel guilty for not telling him earlier about this deer, but then once he found out about this deer, it was even more awesome because he literally kept people out of there once I told him the story.
That's rare.
He was like, I don't have any pictures of this deer. You need this deer. I'm like, nobody deserves a deer like this. I just got blessed and lucky to be able to get him. But I mean, for him to do that says a lot about the type of guy he is. And so I'm like, well, he's still alive, but your deer's alive. It was 20 yards away from this guy, and it was the first deer that he's seen from West Virginia.
This client of the outfitters.
Like, I'm going to only hunt Illinois from now on.
And a 215-inch deer comes out, and he's like, he told Bill, he's like, yeah, I don't think I was looking at my pins.
You just lose your mind.
Yeah.
You can't blame the guy.
His defense.
And I don't blame him. I just missed him twice, bud. Don't worry about it.
Could have killed him with the
I've known about this deer for 2 years and I missed him
got a force field around him.
Don't feel bad about it. But so we got out. I didn't see him till the 20th, and the 20th of November, and the 20th was the Wednesday before Friday for shotgun. And I watched him for 90 minutes, and he just toyed with me. I literally 90 minutes. I'm not exaggerating. And he was about 100 and 150 yards the whole time, just do. And so then he finally got off, went on with himself. And so the 20th, first shotgun season went, second shotgun season went, nothing. And I was like, well, somebody shot him. The only thing is, like, where I'm at, I'm pretty close to everybody. And if anybody shoots a deer, I'm probably going to know who it is, which I'm very fortunate of. But what happened was there was a cornfield about a mile away, and he shelled it on December 4th. And December 5th, I got my first picture of him again. Back in the exact same spot I got his first picture. So honey hole. And then the next day on the 7th of December, I got a cell cam picture of him down by the river. And that's where I finally ended up, like, on the 8th. I was like, man, it's not a perfect win, and it's not a spot I really like to go because I have to tromp through the woods quite a bit. But I was like, I think he's bedding down by the river, and that's my only hope. And what do you know? I got up in my stand. I had a weird feeling that whole morning, like, he was here yesterday and he's not moving much. I'm like, he's got to be close. And so when the sun came up, I stood up and turned around the other way. I was like, he's going to come from right here. And there's some deer immediately when the sun came up, about 5 minutes after shooting light. They're running around. I'm like, it was a good hunt already. And I looked off to my left, and it was like a mythical creature appeared out of nowhere. And he's 50 yards away.
Behind his head.
Yeah, I'm like
glistening off his rod.
I almost like, am I supposed to shoot or what? Like, and my camera was set up perfect. Like, I literally, all I had to do was press play.
And to note, he's trying to self-film all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, as Tim knows, not easy.
Yeah. So, don't rate me on my camera. But all I had to do was press play. But also, when I went to reach to press my camera, he turns around and starts heading back into the woods. Like, he just came out probably 5 yards, grabbed 2 bean pods, and turned around. And when he turned around, I was like, well, I'm going to shoot him. And I was like, because I've seen this deer 38 times. I'm like, I can't let there be a 39th.
Yeah.
So it was
footage or not, this isn't your job.
It's going to have to.
I got to kill this deer.
Yeah. So, 50 yards. Shot it. There's blood going everywhere. Like, man, I feel good about this. He ran off to the side of the woods about 70 yards, and I heard a crash, but could have been just running off. So, I made some phone calls. I'm like, I think I got him. Like, I couldn't believe what happened, really. And so we waited about an hour and got down where he was, and it was like just a red carpet right there. And where I heard him crash is where he was at, and he was just piled up immediately. And so, just the feeling of finally to end a chapter of my life, really. I probably should have done some things different the way I obsessed over this deer a little more than I should have. But again, at the end of the day, I mean,
it's hard to argue with. The end result.
I mean, you could see why any hunter would be obsessed with a deer like that. I mean, the frame, these just don't, these are pretty rare.
Yeah. I mean, 133 hunts, and I mean, just, I don't know, pretty incredible, the opportunities that he gave me.
Yeah.
And you just don't get that very often with any deer.
I tell you where he screwed up. I'm going to give you a secret. It's when he reached out to me and said, "Hey, you know what? There's this deer. Should I film him? Oh yeah, you should get this deer on
bring a
film
camera in
for
the
us.
mix.
Yeah, throw a camera in the mix. You probably would have had, like, if you saw him 38 times, it probably would have been like more like 20.
Yeah. Hey, but it wouldn't have been the story it was, you know?
Yeah.
So when he's laying on the ground, do you take a moment just to look at him and drink it in, or do you rush over and get your hands on him?
I fist pumped and ran over there and got my hands on him. But then when I got my hands on him, I think actually in the footage, I took just a deep breath, and I was like,
relief.
Like there was so much. I don't want to say
The ghost of Christmas past is gone now.
I guess there's a lot of stress coming from a lot of different things coming together. Like, you know, my dad saying, "Hey, maybe you should work a little bit more." Because I was hunting.
Your wife, your dad.
My wife was like, "Man, you hunt too much." I'm like, "Yeah, probably." And then there's
Don't disagree with you.
And then, you know, neighbors, which I would be happy for anybody to get a deer like this, to be honest. I'm not going to be that type of guy like, man, that's my deer. You know?
Well, you proved it the year before, because that 181 or whatever it was that your neighbor killed, you know, that you had history with that deer. You
Oh,
the year
absolutely.
before, you were after him that year. I mean, he was a giant too, and you were thrilled for that guy.
Oh, but the cool thing was, I mean, my neighbor, he's killed some mega giants as well, he was the second person to lay his hands on it. So we have a great connection. And I mean, he was happy for me, and that made me feel even better.
Sure.
That, you know, he was happy for me, and it's what I needed at that moment. You know, I didn't want him to be upset over it. You know, at the end of the day, it's a deer.
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of hard to, I mean, it's
hard to
lose
say.
sight of that a little bit. But man, congrats. So what did he end up officially scoring?
Gross 215.
I probably would have let him.
I was waiting for that, because that's what you usually, the joke you always hear when somebody kills a giant. I was like, I would have let him.
Yeah.
Someone online is going to say that.
Yeah. Because you know, he's got some stickers that could have really blown up. I mean, it would have been nice to see.
But the crazy thing was, he was just a perfect 12 last year.
And just think, you could have hit him with your truck 2 years before that.
Yeah.
That'd be cheaper.
Yeah. Now he's getting a full body mount. So
is he?
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's
I mean, it's a special deer, and we won't go into the whole full story, but your really good friend Brooks, he kills a deer that he had been after, and you had been after as well, and you guys had tapped me on it, and he went gross 212?
a 212, and we have his sheds that we acquired from the year before.
Bring him over.
Yeah, this deer is just crazy cool character.
So it's just crazy. Like,
and this is a replica of the sheds.
Replica. Of
Wait
the
a minute, that's not a real deer.
Yeah.
You can see his writing on its skull
and
plate.
this is not a high fence deer. This is wild. And
so you guys found his match set of sheds.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't say we found. We acquired of them.
Okay.
So my buddy Chris Crow from Skillet Fork found this side, and then this was laying in our field.
Okay.
So
that was nice of him to.
Oh yeah, because he has the real sheds, and then we got 2 replicas for Brooks and I. And just real quick, 3 years ago, Chris was the only guy who had pictures of this deer, and he was a nice deer, but you know, probably 150 inch, but he still had like some crazy stuff. You just knew he was going to be a mega giant.
Yeah.
And then he literally went from probably a 160 to this. And this year right here, which this isn't this year, this is the year before.
Yeah.
That he should have been shot. I mean,
he was everywhere.
He was everywhere. Ended up on Facebook. I mean, pictures. I mean, Brooks and I got pictures of him.
Wanted poster.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand how this deer made it. And then fast forward to this year, he lost a little bit of mass, but he grew a 16-inch horn out here on the bottom of his main beam. and he was still 212 inches unofficially. I mean, that's a monster. And I mean, the day that we knew he was going to get shot that year was when me and Brooks were going to the blind during muzzleloader season. And again, he ran out in front of us in the road and he was out of his element. I mean, he's never been there before and he was just running crazy in the middle of the day. And it was the next day. I was supposed to be
stupid deer.
It's
amazing they grew this big.
Right.
I honestly don't know how, but that's just, so he ran out in the middle of the road, and then it was the next day. I had to go to a wedding. I was supposed to be filming him, and I went to the wedding. He called me. He's like, "I think I just killed him." I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Well, he's bedded down. I shot
muzzleloader season,
and he shot him, and he instantly dropped, but he could still see his head turning."
Anytime that happens is with a muzzleloader, it's usually like, I got to get another one in him.
Yeah,
like this is not
shocked.
a good.
But the thing was, he was bedded down in some tall grass, and you could just see the horns. Mm-hmm. So it was about 15 minutes before shooting lights over, and so Brooks got down. He waited till I got back from the wedding. It was about 10 o'clock, and we went to where he was bedded, and there was nothing, no blood or anything. Like, man, maybe, he felt comfortable in that grass. He shot, just hunkered down, thought he was safe. And that's what we were going to tell ourselves so we could sleep that night. And we were walking back to the truck, and there was a fence that we had to go through. And I was like, I'm going to turn my light on, make sure I don't trip over this fence. And I turn on, there's blood everywhere. I'm like, what just happened? And I mean, it was crazy. We started following that blood, and it wasn't specks. It was like, just walking. Mm-hmm. Like, well, if he gets to this tall grass, we're going to let him lay, because who knows if he's right there or not. And he went to the grass, and we got out, went home, and came back the next day. And it took 5 minutes when we found him. He went 70 yards from where we last looked.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, where Brooks shot him at, he went 10 yards away from the blind. He laid down and was there for who knows how long. Brooks left, and then the deer circled around, crossed the fence on the neighbors, then came back through and right by the blind.
That he was shot from.
And so it was just a bizarre story, and good to see a good guy finally harvest that deer that had history with him. Because I mean,
him and his son Cal, they were after him really hard.
Yeah,
for a couple of years.
And I know there was one guy that was at the Outfitters that he literally hunted this deer for 14 days straight, all day sits.
Yeah,
and I was like, I gotta give it to. I mean,
he's putting in the time.
Yeah, so.
So pretty incredible. Couple giant Illinois, Southern Illinois studs.
Yeah.
And really cool history with both of them. And it was, I thought it was worth sharing, not only on the podcast, but on DOD TV. And we did, I think, a couple of the DeerCast contributors.
There's a giant tracker on this deer, and I think on Brooks deer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we tried to share a little bit
documented.
With the audience what the stories were behind these deer. They were just so special. It was hard not to. I mean, these are the kind of deer you see on North American Whitetail, and you see on these covers.
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
It's just hard not to pull your eyes away from it.
It really is.
You want to keep looking at it. There's so much to look at.
So yesterday we went shed hunting. We found what we felt like was the best shed on the farm. And then you come in here and I look at this. It's like, man, that deer is not that good.
Antler envy.
But the thing is, and these deer are just mega giants, and they were killed less than 10 miles away from each other.
Yeah.
But my expectations isn't this next year.
Sure. It was just that rare, perfect storm.
I mean, this may happen again in my lifetime. It may not.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm back to shooting mature deer that I have relationships with. I mean, this is kind of in the past, but also you're just super, you're not going to let it go.
Yeah. No way. In fact, I'm going to drive around with this.
Yeah.
But I'm number one. I'm number one.
Yeah.
So awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you sharing the story with us.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me share.
It kind of makes me excited about this upcoming deer season, because last season I passed on every buck that was on my properties. I didn't kill a single one.
Gonna have a
so there's probably 3 or 4 or 5 of those things walking around.
Yeah.
I will say, I could have killed some good deer that I would have been happy with, but up until this year, I haven't killed a deer since 2016.
Yeah, you've passed a lot of deer to try to kill a couple really special deer.
Yeah, you know, I was after that 181. Well, I wounded him in 17.
Yeah.
18, I was hunting him hard. He got killed. Then this tower showed up more regular. So it was like, I passed on more 150-inch deer than I would ever dreamed of and would have been ecstatic about. But now they're bigger. So
that's not bragging to say. It's like when you have a deer of the caliber of these deer, sometimes you forego.
Yeah,
you're.
It's a lot easier to pass them.
Yeah, it's like, man, I know what's here. That's kind of maybe the problem with trail cameras. It's like, I know what's here.
Yep.
I gotta pass. I gotta pass. I know what's here. But that being said, that's also how they continue to get to be
two-edged sword.
Stature.
Yep,
yeah. So
that's right.
Pretty cool story, man.
Thank you.
Well, one of our listeners, Steve K, jumped in. He had a question of the day for us. I thought Chase would be a great one to answer.
Yeah. So the question of the day is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here.
Hi, my name's Steve. I'm from Pennsylvania. About 5 years ago, I purchased a farm in southern Ohio to manage for trophy whitetails for my father and I. And my question is, how do you manage friends and family wanting to hunt your property when you are trying to manage for trophy whitetails? I think a lot of listeners might be in the same situation where they have a small farm or their first farm, and friends and family help them out who also want to hunt. And just wondering how you manage that healthy balance while trying to grow and manage these bucks. Thanks.
It's a really good question and a valid question.
That's awesome.
We'll get your thoughts here in a second. I just wanted to share it. You know, he mentioned that it's a first piece. It's a small, kind of alluded to it being maybe a smaller piece. And that's a tough situation to be in, because I think general hunters, like the general public hunters, maybe not the hardcore hunter, not the guy that's archery hunting or going out every day or, you know, but maybe it's a weekend warrior, or maybe it's a gun only, or maybe it's just a family member that wants to get out once a year. That's tough when you're trying to manage for mature whitetails. They may not understand.
Your mindset's totally different.
It is. They don't necessarily understand that that's even a thing. You know what I mean? They may not understand the levels of sacrifice that you're making to try to create habitat or food or whatever the case may be. So it's a tough situation, because I think about my brother-in-law. They got him and my sister, they have a young family, and there's a lot of, they're outdoorsy, but it's a lot of four-wheelers and fishing and squirrel hunting. It's a lot of everything. And, you know, that their mentality is that mindset. It's like, okay, that's what we're doing with our farm. It's not
recreational property.
It's not about managing it for big trophy whitetails. They would, I'm sure, love it if that happened, but their family's young and they're enjoying it in a much different way now. That doesn't mean that it can't be something later in life. And when you got a small piece, I think that's a fine line of how much pressure and intrusion you really want on that piece and what your expectations need to be. If your expectation is that there's going to be a trophy farm, and trophy could be, 130 inches or 120 or 180, it's relative. It's relative. But if that's your expectation, you may have to put your foot down in certain aspects saying, all right, yes, you can come hunt, but this is, we're managing for does, or, here's kind of the do not shoot list, and here's what we can. And then you gotta understand, all right, is that taking the fun out of it for people? But if it's your property, you got to make those decisions. And I think of Dad and his farm, and it's, in all honesty, it's a bigger piece. It's 1,000 acres. That's a lot of ground, but from the word go, and this is what we do, his mindset was always, hey, we're managing it for upper end deer. And when the grandkids come, it's usually just one of them a year, and we rotate out every year. A new grandkid gets to come. I mean, that's just what it is. It's always been that way. And they understand that the expectation is as such. If we weren't doing this for a living, I think it would be a lot different, and we would have,
no doubt,
firearm season would be a tradition at that farm. And it just isn't that way because we have industry guests that we have to take. We have obligations, so it's a little bit different. But in your case, Chase, I'd get your opinion because you guys have a little bit more dirt, but it's not recreational necessarily. It's your living. It's your family farming. It's something that you got to do to, you have employees, you have a lot that's riding on it. So what's your take on it?
I mean, first off, that is an awesome question. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can take it, but I think one of the most important things is don't let deer hunting make you selfish. And, also with that said, you need everybody to be on the same page because if you're not going to get done what you want done. So, I mean, kind of how I manage, that situation, whether it's family, friends, it's mainly more
podcast hosts, whatever.
It's more so
stay out, Tim.
It's more so friends than anything. And, I love them to death, but one thing we do, we all work together. And like you said, we have our hit list, don't shoot. I mean, pretty much I know every single deer that's on that property and that needs to be passed. And I mean, I think that's important. And especially it can be hard on a smaller piece too. And with that said, even big pieces it's not like there's 5 shooters on the property. I mean, I've had some 500 acre spots that there's not a shooter. Yeah. And it's just year to year. And I mean, it kind of depends what you want out of it too. Do you want a good family bonding shotgun season? Let's come in once the sun comes up and eat biscuits and gravy, or you want to try to kill a mature deer? And either way can be fun because I've done both before. Because honestly, when I started out, it was my dad taking me shotgun season, sitting on the ground behind a tree, and had a blast. And then when I got older and bow hunting on my own, I'm like, man, this can be so much more. And when you start putting in more work, I know your outlook looks a little different. And I mean, some people can't do that. I understand. And luckily in the position I'm in with farming, I mean, we have some seasons where I'm able to put in a little bit more time. And I don't know, either way can be fun and great, but don't make bad relationships with your friends and family over a deer is what I'm trying to say.
It's a good point because it could be fun either way, but as long as your expectations are in the right spot going into it. Like here's a good example. I got some buddies from high school and we grew up in a small town, St. Genevieve, Missouri, Bloomsdale, Missouri. Bloomsdale's 400 people, St. Genevieve's 5,000 or whatever. And a friend of ours, of our group, he bought a piece over in Illinois and he managed it. He's a great hunter. He kills big deer every year. And everybody from our town kind of knows that he manages that piece over there. This was, I felt like one of the most selfless things I've heard of in a while. This was last year. He invited those guys ahead of time to put in for tags. And if they got tags, they were going to do a group shotgun hunt over there. And I even said to him, I go, a couple of these guys, just no fault of their own. They're not going to know how to judge those deer based on what they're accustomed to.
Sure.
And he had no qualms with that, no problem at all. He's like, I know it. And they had a blast over there. They had a good time. And several of them had opportunities to kill deer, and funny stories ensued. Kind of, it's one of those deals where they made a lot of memories over there together. Well, one of our buddies shot a young buck that was a stud that would have been a great up and comer, and it was fine with the owner of the piece because he knew going in his expectations was somebody might do that. They had a hit list and do not shoot. But in the heat of the moment when deer are running and you're sitting in a blind by yourself, unless you're going to go as the property owner or manager and go with everybody,
you can't guarantee anything.
You can't guarantee it. So I thought that was he had a great mindset going into it. And sure enough, what happened, was what you thought could have happened. Did happen. He had no problem with it. And it was one of the best deer that this guy ever killed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he'll never forget that.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like, if that's your goal, you're going to have memories, and those your family and friends are going to be around for a long time. So you have to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
That's the best thing to see though. Like if they're happy about that deer, you can be happy about that deer. I mean, that's pretty cool to see. And somebody, like you said, doesn't get to hunt much. I mean,
and you think about it even more detailed, like, hey, was it, a child, or was it maybe a girlfriend or wife or somebody like an aunt or
both?
Yeah, there you go. So you think about it in those terms, like you kind of got to be happy. Like I wouldn't have any problem shooting anything in that instance. A guest shooting anything in that instance. It's like, hey, you're here to make, and we do that a lot at Dad's, where a guest comes in and doesn't have much of a hunting history. Yeah. And it's like, hey, whatever you're happy with, My
buddy Jace came and filmed for me one day this past fall, and a forkhorn walked through, and he needed meat for the freezer and had a buck tag and had very little time to hunt. It was funny because the deer was coming down the hill and I didn't see it, and he was in another tree and trying to let me know. And I look over, I was like, oh, hey, there's a deer. He's like, I'm trying to tell you. I was like, you want to shoot him? And we're making these hand gestures, and he shot. The
deer's looking like,
these two idiots.
He was too dumb. He didn't know. It was just a young deer, but he was so excited to kill that deer. And who knows what that deer would have turned into someday.
There'll be another one.
And Jace is a great friend, and so I was happy for him, and it ended up.
Yeah, there's always another deer.
There is.
That's right.
So to put it, maybe not like this, but there's always another one.
That's right.
So that's a good question. Thanks, Steve, for posing it.
Yeah, and if you want to leave a question, just go to DreOutdoors.com/podcast and leave us a message. Make it quick and leave us your name, location, and what you want to know about, and we will do our best to answer it on the air.
And we never asked this, but if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, leave us a rating and good or bad. Hopefully good.
We prefer one more than the other, but we can't say which.
Yeah, good or bad. Leave us a review and a rating. We'd love to get the feedback, and by all means, please share this. This would be a good one to share. That was a cool story listening to Chase tell.
Yeah, exactly. And so before we wind up our session, let's talk about the wildlife word for the week.
All right. So you know all about it. Okay.
The wildlife word is sponsored this week by toilet paper.
Very topical.
Problem is you can't purchase it.
Yeah. All right. What do you got?
The wildlife word is clutch.
I feel like the shot you made at the final shot that killed Towers was clutch.
Yep.
But that may not be what this description is.
Yeah, that's kind of an adjective. This is more of a noun. Yeah. But you're not wrong.
I was going with Matt's, you think of a sports event.
That's
beater
one,
came in
that's
clutch.
one usage of the word.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's hear it.
It's a group of eggs produced by birds, amphibians, and or reptiles.
You were wrong.
Oh, man. Bummer.
A turkey's clutch usually consists of 10 to 17 eggs.
I have heard that. Yes, I have heard that.
Kind of like a purse, a clutch.
There you go.
Yeah, only for eggs, and it's on the ground.
Yeah. Just like it.
It's identical.
Good deal.
Yeah. Thanks to our sponsor this week. We appreciate it.
I would like a toilet paper sponsor, because this studio goes through more toilet paper.
The cleaning people left a note in this bathroom over here that said that they had cached the toilet paper in the cabinets that we have in there. I think they were wanting us to know, hey, we didn't rip you off.
Yeah,
we just reorganized the toilet paper. But it's so weird that we're at that point.
We did have to have the talk here at the studio today. Hey, you may want to think about using it in a little more reserved fashion in case we can't get more.
Yeah.
Maybe he's selling some deer meat too for some pretty good prices.
That's right. Yeah, no kidding.
Man, I
did tell my wife that last night. I was like, hey, think about it. Because I went to the grocery store on my way home from the shed hunt. I stopped by the grocery store to get just the necessities for the week. We shop week to week, like most people. And we do it on every Sunday. Is when we shop for the week. And she had sent me the list, and I was like, I called her. I was like none of this stuff is here. I brought home the most random array.
I bought 3 boxes of Fig Newtons.
I was the worst
2 pounds of butter
person to send to that store. Literally, it's a variety of stuff that none goes together to make one comprehensive meal. But we got stuff.
And you're probably thinking, how will we consume this?
Yeah.
There's no
that's her problem to figure out. I just got the
coherent
stuff.
meal here.
Yeah. So
Well, it was like that everywhere yesterday. No eggs, milk.
I told her, I was like, at least we do have, like, we got, a decent amount of like deer sausage and sticks and, stuff like that. I was like, she looked at me like, that's not dinner. I'm like, it may be. I don't know.
Slim pickings coming up here.
Slim Jims and cheese.
I'm just saying, we have options.
Yep.
Yes. And your address is
Yeah, exactly.
don't come to my house.
I also have guns.
Sausage and guns. Let's roll. All right. We should probably shut this thing down. Chase, thanks for hopping over and bringing it's really nice of you to leave those here. That's
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
I'll get them later.
Yeah. No, congratulations. That was an awesome year. Brooks and you both, that was pretty phenomenal. And thank you for sharing the stories.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. That's awesome. Not too many times you get to share a once in a lifetime story on a platform
That's
like
what
this.
it is, man.
They are.
So,
Yep. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for watching. We appreciate it.
peace.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by OnX Hunt, the nation's #1 GPS hunting app.